The smell of freshly brewed coffee still hung in the kitchen air, an absurd contrast to the document resting on the white marble countertop. Mark, my husband. Or perhaps I should start saying my ex-husband was adjusting his cufflinks with a precision I had always found cold. He was wearing his tailored suit, the pearl grey one he liked for closing out the quarter at the bank. He looked like he was preparing for a board meeting, not for dynamiting 12 years of a shared life. "There's no point in dragging this out, Leah," he said, without looking at me, running his fingers along the edge of the leather folder. His voice was flat, professional, the same one he used to decline a high-risk loan application. "The lawyers have been clear. This is the cleanest way for both of us." I watched his profile, the tense jaw, the twitch of impatience. The Upper East Side apartment, with its views of Central Park, was tomb silent. Our silence, the one that had been growing like a weed for the last 2 years, now filled every room. Clean. I repeated, my voice betraying nothing. Not pain, not anger. Empty. A void as vast as this high-ceilinged living room I'd always detested. "Yes, clean," he affirmed, finally looking up. His eyes, the color of a cloudy sky over Manhattan, showed no remorse, only pragmatism. "You get your mother's apartment in Boston. I keep this. The joint savings are divided as specified. No debts, no future claims. It's fair." Fair. The word echoed hollowly. I stared at the contract, pages and pages of sterile clauses that reduced a marriage a life to asset allocations and mutual waivers. I had watched him review it meticulously for weeks, whispering on the phone with his lawyer in the middle of the night. I pretended to be asleep. "You've reviewed the confidentiality clause," he added, pointing to a paragraph with his index finger. "It's standard. No airing our dirty laundry on social media or to the press. Absolute discretion. For the sake of my position, and ultimately for yours too." A bitter smile wanted to form on my lips. My position. Mark Sterling, the rising vice president of private banking, the financial institution's golden boy. He couldn't afford a scandal, a scorned ex-wife. I was simply an asset that had ceased to be profitable, a failed emotional investment that now had to be liquidated in an orderly fashion. "I have no dirty laundry to air, Mark," I said. And it was true. Our shipwreck had been slow grey, made of dozens of silences of weekends where he worked, and I wandered through empty museums filled with the absence of a child that never came. "Nothing juicy for the tabloids." "Glad to hear it," he replied, as if closing an item on an agenda. "Then all that's missing is your signature." He took out his fountain pen, the Mont Blanc I gave him for his first big promotion. With an almost ceremonial gesture, he slid it across the marble toward me. I let it grow cold between my fingers. There were no more words, no recriminations from him, no "where did we go wrong?" There were none from me either. The grieving, if there had been any, I had done alone months ago, crying in the shower so he wouldn't hear my sobs. Now only inertia remained. I opened the folder. The lawyer's font was dense, incomprehensible in its jargon. I looked for the dotted line at the end of the last page. There was his signature, energetic, confident, dominating the space. Mark Sterling. I took a deep breath. The air smelled of coffee and bleach. I rested the tip of the pen on the paper and signed. Leah Miller, my smaller name next to his. The dark blue ink seemed to soak up the light from the lamp. Mark gave a quick grimace that could have been satisfaction or relief. He picked up the folder with one hand. "The furniture, the things. Take whatever is personal, obviously. You have until Friday. I've spoken with the realtor. They already have a potential buyer interested in the apartment. The area is highly valued." He didn't say, "You're home until Friday." He said, The apartment. It wasn't mine anymore. Maybe it never was. I don't need any of this, I murmured, looking around. The Italian designer sofa he loved, and that destroyed my back. The abstract sculpture that was more an investment than an object of taste. They were just props for the life Mark had built. I'll just take my books, my clothes, and my mother's boxes. As you wish, he said, already putting the folder in his executive briefcase. I've left a check for the agreed-upon amount on the entryway table. It's from a different bank in your name, so you have your independence. It was the final stab, disguised as gallantry. His way of saying he didn't want a woman, his ex-wife, to depend on him for a single day longer. I swallowed hard. Thank you, was all I could manage to say. He hesitated for a moment, as if a trace of humanity wanted to break through the armor of his suit. But it was just a moment. He nodded again, almost imperceptibly, and headed for the door. There was no hug, no kiss on the cheek, no final, "Take care." Just the crunch of his Italian leather shoes on the hardwood floor. The front door closed with a soft, definitive click, not a slam, but the closing of a safe. I stood there in the middle of the overly bright kitchen, listening to the sound of the elevator descending. Then silence, a silence so absolute it rang in my ears. I spent the next few hours moving like an automaton. I pulled the old suitcases from the storage closet, the ones I used to visit my mother in Boston. I filled them with clothes, the few books that were mine, and not decorative, the old framed photos he hated. I put my grandmother's few pieces of china in a cardboard box, and in another the papers and mementos of my mother that I kept in the back of a closet. I didn't cry. My hands felt cold and my mind was strangely clear, empty like a blank screen after a particularly boring movie. By nightfall, the apartment was ready. My belongings, about 6 boxes and 2 suitcases, were piled by the door. The rest, the set dressing of our life together, remained intact, waiting for the new actor who would take my place. I poured myself a glass of water, sat on the edge of the sofa. I detested and looked at my phone. A black screen, no messages from him or from friends. Claudia, my best and almost only friend, was on a business trip in London. I had told her what was coming, but I hadn't wanted to talk on the phone. "I'll see you in Boston soon, honey. Just breathe," she had texted. I breathed. It was then that the phone vibrated once, short and dry. A message, not from Claudia. The name on the screen was his Mark. My heart skipped a beat, a stupid reflex of a hope that no longer existed. I opened the message. There were no pleasantries, no explanations, no final polite goodbye. Just one line, sharp as broken glass. "Don't ever contact me again." The black letters on the white light of the screen seemed to stab my eyes. I read it once, twice, 3 times. It wasn't a request. It was a command. A final act of control, of wiping the slate absolutely clean. Mark erasing the last emotional trace, ensuring that not even a clumsy call in a moment of weakness could disturb his new order. Never again. 2 words that tried to put a definitive end to everything, even the possibility of a kind memory. The coldness of that sentence, its absolute lack of mercy, made something inside me break. It wasn't sadness, it was something else. Something hard, sharp and still that settled in the pit of my stomach. The afternoon's emptiness was suddenly filled with a new substance, dense and icy. My fingers, which had been cold, now moved with mechanical calm over the touchscreen. I didn't type a curse or a question or a reproach. I didn't spill my pain into a long, useless text. That was what he, in his arrogance, might have expected. A plea, an outburst, something to validate his decision to get rid of an emotional, unstable woman. Instead, with a perfectly steady hand, I typed a single word and hit send. The only response his absolute never again deserved was an equally absolute, simple, clear, irrevocable compliance. My screen showed the sent message. Okay. I turned off the phone. The darkness of the room enveloped me. Outside New York flickered with its orange lights. Inside, only the echo of my own breathing and the weight of that solitary word floating in the digital space between us. Okay. I had signed the divorce, and now I was signing his sentence of disappearance. I stood up, grabbed my coat and the last suitcase. On my way out, I left my apartment keys, the ones that had been on my keychain for 12 years, on the entryway table next to the check I never touched. The door closed behind me with the same silent click as hours before. I went down the stairs, pushing my luggage without looking back. On the street, the night was cold. A taxi passed with its light on. I hailed it. "Where to?" the driver asked. "Penn Station," I said as I settled into the back seat. Through the window, I saw the lights of our building, our old building, receding. On some floor, a window was lit, the kitchen, perhaps, or the living room, spaces that no longer belonged to me. I took out my phone and turned it on. The confirmation screen for the message sent to Mark was still there. Okay, one word, an agreement, an ending, or a beginning. The taxi merged into the traffic of the New York night, heading south, heading to the station, heading for the Acela that in 3 hours would drop me in Boston. Into an old life, into my mother's memories, into uncertainty. I was leaving behind Mark, his bank, his pearl grey suits, his relentless order, and I carried with me, in my coat pocket, the cold, sharp weight of that okay, not yet knowing that this word, this simple agreement, would be the spark that would ignite everything. Boston smelled of salt and gasoline. The damp February air was different from the dry cold of New York, and the bustle of Tremont Street, though intense, felt less hostile, more anonymous. The taxi stopped in front of a brownstone in the South End, my new, or rather my old home, my mother's apartment. I hauled my suitcases and boxes up in the tiny, creaking elevator that protested with every floor. When I opened the door, I was enveloped by a smell of old dust and lavender, the unmistakable scent of my mother, even 3 years after her death. No one had lived here since. Mark had always despised the apartment. He considered it small, outdated, without the right views or status. "A nest of old memories," he would say with disdain. For me, it was the only place I had left. I spent the next 2 days in a state of practical numbness, unpacking, cleaning windows, throwing out expired food from the fridge. I didn't think. I just acted. I moved furniture, put old sheets out in the sun on the tiny balcony, and tried not to hear the echo of the okay I had sent. Mark, not a period, not a read receipt, nothing. My obedient silence had apparently been the perfect response. It was on the 3rd day, while I was emptying the tall linen closet in the hallway, that I found it a small, unmarked cardboard box, hidden behind a stack of thick towels. I didn't remember it. I took it down and opened it on the kitchen table, raising a cloud of dust that made me sneeze. Inside, there were no photos or jewelry, but papers. Property deeds for the apartment. Old insurance policies, my baptismal certificate, and a thicker manila envelope with my name written in my mother's shaky but familiar handwriting from her last months. For Leah. My heart jumped. With fingers that were suddenly not so steady, I opened the envelope. Inside, there wasn't a letter. Just 2 objects, a small, worn silver key of the type used for bank-safe deposit boxes, and a piece of paper folded several times with a few lines written in a hurry. Dearest Leah, if you're reading this, it means things with Mark have gone wrong. He is not who he says he is. This key opens safe deposit box 712 at the main Chase branch on Park Avenue. I opened it in your name years ago. Don't tell him anything. Trust your instincts, honey. I love you, Mum." The words danced before my eyes. He is not who he says he is. The cold that had settled in my stomach in New York spread. My mother had never fully trusted Mark. She found him too polished, too ambitious. But I, blind with love or comfort, had dismissed her comments. "She's just being overprotective, Mum," I would tell her. She would smile sadly and change the subject. Apparently, she had done more than change the subject. I held the key. It was cold and heavy. What could my mother have hidden? And why? If things with Mark have gone wrong, it seemed she had been preparing for this moment for my escape, years before it happened. A mix of gratitude and fear coursed through me. The doorbell rang abruptly, making me jump. I almost dropped the key. I held my breath. Mark. No, impossible. He didn't know this address, and besides, his order had been clear. Never again. I looked through the peephole. A familiar face with tousled brown hair and large, worried green eyes looked back at me. Claudia. I threw the door open and she wrapped me in a hug so tight it knocked the wind out of me. She smelled of expensive perfume and travel. "My God, Leah, here you are," she exclaimed, letting me go to look me up and down. "You look like a ghost, but a ghost on its feet." "Good. What are you doing here? I thought you were in London until next week." "Finished early. Got on a flight as soon as I could. Here I am. I couldn't leave you alone during this transition," she said, walking past me and leaving her roller bag in the hallway. Her expert lawyer's gaze swept the apartment, evaluating, analyzing. "So how are you as the son of a bitch, at least civil?" "Civil and cold as an iceberg," I replied, closing the door. The normalcy of her presence, her practical energy, began to dissipate some of the fog in my head. I signed, I left. He told me to never contact him again. End of story. Claudia snorted. "That's Mark. Efficient even in his cruelty. And the settlement. Did he show you the full declaration of assets, investments, offshore accounts?" "Claudia, it was a mutual divorce, not a fraud trial. We split the joint savings funds. I get this place, he gets the apartment in New York. Period." "No," she countered, pulling a tablet from her bag. "Forgive me for being the pushy lawyer, but it's my job and you're my best friend. That period could be hiding a lot of commas. Mark is a VP in private banking, Leah. He makes a fortune. The joint savings you saw, are you sure that was everything? No investment accounts, funds, shares in shell corporations? Nothing in a straw man's name or in some tax haven those guys love?" Her direct, professionally suspicious words collided with the paper I was still holding. "He is not who he says he is." "Actually," I began hesitantly. Then I decided. If I couldn't trust Claudia, I couldn't trust anyone. I handed her the key and the folded paper. "I found this today among my mother's things." Claudia took the objects. Her green eyes narrowed as she read the note. Her professional, unflappable expression cracked for a moment, revealing astonishment. "Holy shit, Leah," she murmured. "Your mother. What a woman. This is very significant. What do you think is in there?" "I don't know. But if your mother, who was the least paranoid person in the world, took the trouble to open a box in your name and hide the key, it's not going to be cookie recipes," Claudia said, her mind already working at high speed. "It says, he is not who he says he is. In my jargon, that usually means one of two things. Either he has a double love life, or he has a double financial life. And given Mark's profession and the fact that he hid assets from you, I don't know." I repeated, feeling the floor turn unstable beneath my feet. The idea of Mark with his obsession for order and appearances being a crook was absurd. Or was it I remembered his unexpected business trips, his hushed calls after closing his study door, his irritation when I asked about certain clients or transactions, things I had attributed to stress, to pressure from the bank? There's only one way to find out, Claudia said, her voice now serious, determined. We're going to that bank tomorrow morning. I'm going with you. You are. I'm your lawyer as of this second. And your friend. This isn't just a divorce anymore, Leah. This smells like something bigger. And if that bastard has been hiding money from you during your marriage, that divorce agreement isn't worth the paper it's printed on. We can nullify it, or at the very least claim what you're owed, and much more. The determination in her voice was contagious. Fear began to mix with something else, a spark of rage. I had been living a lie. He had treated me like a disposable asset while hiding a fortune. The okay I had sent him no longer felt like a silent surrender. It started to taste like something acidic, a slow-acting poison. Okay, I said, and my own voice sounded firmer. We'll go tomorrow. Claudia nodded, satisfied. Then her gaze softened. And now we stop. You need to rest and eat something that isn't cracker crumbs. I stopped by a deli and picked up some good prosciutto and a fresh baguette. Let's go out to the balcony. The sun is decent. As we prepared an impromptu dinner on the small balcony, with the background noise of the neighborhood, Claudia told me about London, about her love life, about everything except Mark. It was her way of giving me a break. I nodded, smiled at the right moments, but my mind was elsewhere. In a safe deposit box, number 712 in the heart of New York, and on Mark's face, if he discovered that not only had I not disappeared from his life, but I was about to dig into its darkest corners. The next day, the sun bathed Park Avenue in a bright, cold light. Claudia and I entered the historic Chase Bank building. The marble. The dim light and the dense silence, broken only by the clacking of keyboards and discreet whispers, ironically reminded me of the world I had just fled. I presented my ID and the key to an employee with an expressionless face. Box 712, in the name of Leah Miller, I said, trying to keep my voice from trembling. The woman typed, looked at the screen, then at me, then at the key. She nodded. Yes, it's registered. You'll need your ID and the key to access the vault. Please follow me. Claudia squeezed my arm in support. We followed the employee down a secure corridor to a steel door. She entered her code and the key turned in the lock. Inside, a row of metal boxes embedded in the wall. Box 712 was at eye level. You'll have privacy here. When you're finished, simply close the door. The key will be released in the outer lock, the employee instructed before leaving us alone in the small, sterile room. Claudia and I exchanged a look. The air conditioning hummed softly. My hand was sweating around the silver key. I inserted it into the lock of box 712. It turned with a soft, solid click. The metal door opened toward me. Inside, there were no stacks of cash or jewels, just a thick white cardstock envelope. Nothing more. I took it. It weighed almost nothing but in my hands. It felt as heavy as lead. We left the bank in silence, the envelope hidden in my purse, as if it were an explosive device. We found a small, quiet cafe in an alley near the bank. We ordered 2 espressos and sat at a back table away from the window. With numb fingers, I opened the envelope. Inside was a thin dossier of about 10 pages. The first was a bank statement, but not from any account I had ever seen. It was from a bank in the Cayman Islands. The account holder was a company, Valdemar Holdings Limited, but what left me breathless were the transfers. One after another, dated over the last 5 years, coming from an account I recognized as the main joint account Mark and I had in New York. Large, discrete amounts, $45,000, $80,000, $120,000, adding up to a total figure that made me see white spots over $2 million be siphoned off month by month to a ghost account in the Caribbean. "Oh my God," murmured Claudia, who was reading over my shoulder. "This is systematic diversion of marital assets. This is colossal." But that wasn't all. Attached to the statement was another sheet. It was a transfer authorization, one of the last ones, for $150,000. And at the bottom, next to Mark's forged signature, I knew his handwriting well, was another clear, distinct signature, as a witness or secondary authorizer, Eva Jenkins. The name was vaguely familiar. Eva. Eva Mark's secretary, the one he had for years. An efficient, discreet woman in her 40s until, according to him, she had decided to seek new professional challenges about 8 months ago. Mark had seemed almost relieved when she left. "The secretary," I whispered. "Eva signed this. Why?" "She might have been a willing accomplice, or Mark might have used her, forced her to sign," murmured Claudia, her eyes scrutinizing the document. "But this is proof. This is paper Leah. Tangible proof that he has stolen from you, that he has hidden assets. With this, we don't just nullify the divorce. We drag him to court and take every last cent. And he knows it. That's why he told you to disappear. The rage that had started as a spark became a blaze. It all made sense. His rush for the divorce, his coldness, his never again command. He wanted me to vanish before I discovered this, before someone like my mother from the grave gave me the tools to destroy him." Claudia was already in lawyer mode, taking pictures of the documents with her phone. "I need to make copies of this, and we need to move fast. If he finds out you have this." At that precise moment, my phone, which was on the table next to the dossier, vibrated. It wasn't a message. It was a call from an unknown New York number. My heart stopped. Claudia and I looked at each other. Was it him? Had he found out already? How the call continued to vibrate, insistent, ominous. With a hand I could barely control, I swiped the screen to answer. I put the phone to my ear without saying anything. On the other end of the line, there was no man's voice. It was a woman's voice, low, urgent, and filled with barely contained panic. Leah Miller. "Yes, who is this?" "It's Eva. Eva Jenkins, Mark's former secretary," the voice said hurriedly, almost in a whisper. "Listen to me, we don't have much time. You can't trust anything your husband tells you, anything. Did you find something, papers?" I was speechless, staring at the documents spread out on the cafe table. Claudia looked at me, alert, questioning with her eyes. "Eva, what? What's happening?" I managed to stammer. "I can't explain now. Not on the phone. It's dangerous. But I have to see you. I have information. Information that could ruin him. But I'm scared, Leah. He's not just a banker." Her voice broke. In the background, a door slammed and she held her breath. "I have to go. Don't call me at this number. I'll contact you." She paused, and her next sentence chilled my blood. "Take care of yourself. And don't trust anyone." The call ended as abruptly as it had begun. I was still holding the phone to my ear. Paralyzed Eva Jenkins's harsh, fearful voice still ringing in my head. "You can't trust anything your husband tells you. It's dangerous. He's not just a banker." "Was that her, the secretary?" Claudia asked in a whisper, leaning across the table. Her eyes, usually so confident, now reflected a sharp alertness. I nodded, unable to speak. I slowly lowered the phone and placed it on the table next to the documents that accused him with their cold ink. The account numbers in the Cayman Islands seemed to dance before my eyes. $2 million. Our life together. Our supposed savings, our future, all diverted drop by drop to a phantom entity called Valdemar Holdings with Eva's signature stamped like a seal of complicity or perhaps coercion. What did she say? Claudia insisted, her voice regaining its practical crisis mode lawyer tone. That we can't trust Mark. That he's dangerous. That he's not just a banker, I repeated, Eva's words tasting like ash. She has information, but she's scared and she'll contact me. Claudia let out a long sigh, running a hand through her hair. She looked around the nearly empty cafe as if every shadow could suddenly hide a threat. Okay, this has gotten ugly. Very ugly, she murmured, gathering the documents and putting them back in the envelope with quick, precise movements. We can't stay here. Let's go to my office. It's safer. Her office in Boston was actually the living room of her apartment in the Back Bay, a temporary setup filled with folders and her laptop. But it had a reinforced door and a decent alarm system. It was enough. Once inside, with the door locked and the blinds down, the outside world seemed to fade away. Claudia poured 2 large glasses of red wine and put one in my hand. Drink. You need it. The dark liquid burned as it went down, but its warmth spread through my chest, dispelling some of the chill I'd been carrying since the safe deposit box. We sat facing each other on her large sofa. The documents spread out again on the coffee table. Let's analyze this, Claudia said, pointing with her finger at Eva Jenkins's signature. She signed this. To anyone's eyes, that makes her an accomplice. But her call, the fear in her voice. That doesn't sound like a satisfied accomplice. It sounds like someone who was dragged into something and is now scared. Very scared. Why would she call me? I asked, my voice still trembling. If she signed it, she's part of the fraud. Why risk warning me? Revenge, Claudia said immediately. Or remorse. Or maybe Mark burned her too. You said he fired her or she left a few months ago. Right after the last big transfers. She pointed to a date on the statement. He might have used her and then discarded her. And now with your divorce, she sees the house of cards might collapse and is afraid of being buried in the rubble. Or she wants to get ahead of it, get some kind of immunity by helping you. Claudia's logic was cold clinical and it made sense. But it didn't quite fit the pure terror in Eva's voice. It wasn't the fear of someone afraid of being caught. It was the fear of someone who feared for her life. She said, "He's not just a banker." What did she mean by that? Claudia shrugged, but she looked tense. It could be anything. That he has dangerous connections. That his business isn't limited to moving stocks on a screen. With these amounts, and how easy it is to move money to the Caymans, he could be involved in money laundering, illegal financing for politicians, or worse. Your husband dealt with clients with a lot of money, Leah. And at that level, the line between elite banking and organized crime is sometimes very, very thin. The idea made me nauseous. I had seen Mark's clients, or at least the ones who paraded through our galas, men in impeccable suits. Women with discreet jewelry, all with an air of respectability and old money. Could some of them be criminals? And Mark, the perfect vice president, their facilitator. What do we do? I asked, feeling overwhelmed. I had proof of embezzlement, but also a vague and terrifying threat, and a scared woman who seemed to be my only ally, and at the same time a possible accomplice. First, we protect ourselves, Claudia said firmly. I'm making digital copies of all this and storing them in the encrypted cloud. Then I'm taking the originals to a safe deposit box in my name at another bank. You shouldn't keep anything physical at your place. Second, we need more information. And for that, we need to talk to Eva Jenkins, but carefully, very carefully. She said she would contact me, and she will, but we can't just wait passively. I'm going to track down what I can about her. You said she was fired, right? I can try to find out the terms of her departure. If there was a non-disclosure agreement, anything. And I'm also going to dig into this Valdemar Holdings. It's a shell company for sure, but it leaves a trail, however small. Claudia already had her laptop open, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Meanwhile, you, Leah, have to act normally. Go back to your apartment, go buy bread, go to the gym. But be alert. If anyone follows you, if you notice anything strange, you call me immediately. And under no circumstances do you contact Mark. His never again order is now our advantage. Let him think you've swallowed your pride and vanished. I nodded. The strategy made sense. But the idea of going back to my mother's apartment alone with the knowledge of what Mark was capable of terrified me. Claudia read it on my face. Just for a few days until Eva calls. Then we decide the next step. But we need what she knows, Leah. That information, whatever it is the key to understanding what the hell is going on and how we can use it against him. I spent the next 48 hours in a state of constant tension. Every noise in the old brownstone made me jump. Every person who walked too slowly behind me on the street set my nerves on edge. I tried to follow Claudia's advice. I went to a farmer's market, bought flowers for the apartment, even tried to read a novel, but the words turned into numbers in my head. 45,000, 80,000, 120,000, and Eva Jenkins's signature. Claudia kept me updated with brief messages. No trace of Eva on social media disappeared from the job market. Valdemar Holdings, registered in Cayman, anonymous director, dead end for now. And then on the second day, found something. Her dismissal from the bank was mutual, but with a huge severance package, abnormally huge for a secretary, like hush money. That fit. Mark had paid her to leave and keep quiet, but apparently it hadn't been enough or something else had gone wrong. The call came at dusk on the third day. Again, an unknown number, but this time with a New York area code. My heart hammered against my ribs. I was on the small balcony looking at the city lights when the phone vibrated in my hand. Yes, I answered, trying to keep my voice from sounding strangled. Leah, it's Eva. Her voice was even lower than before, almost a choked whisper. There was a windy sound in the background, as if she were outside. Can you talk? Yes, I'm alone. Good, listen, we don't have much time. I know you found the documents in the box. Your mother was a good, smart woman. I'm glad you have them. How do you know? It doesn't matter. What's important is that those papers are just the tip of the iceberg, Leah. Mark didn't just steal from you. He's been moving money for very dangerous people. People you can't get rid of with a divorce lawyer. A shiver ran down my spine. What kind of people? Shady businessmen with connections in dark places. Local politicians who need their dirty money to look clean. The usual stuff, but on a different scale. And Her voice broke. I was stupid. At first I thought it was just complex international transfers, tax havens for rich clients. He made me sign papers. He said it was routine, that I should trust him. I needed the job. My son is little. Until one day I saw a man who was in the papers for a corruption case. And I knew. She paused, her breathing ragged. I confronted Mark. It was a mistake. He was furious. He said if I ever spoke, if I even hinted at anything, he would make me lose my son, that he had proof to frame me, that the signatures were mine. Then he offered me money, a lot of money, to leave, to stay quiet forever. And I was scared. I took it. But now you're calling me, I said, feeling a pang of compassion for this woman despite everything. Because I know he won't stop. Because I know what he's capable of. And because when I heard he had left you, that he had thrown you out like a maid, something clicked in me. You don't deserve this, Leah. He used both of us. Me for his dirty business, you to give him the facade of a happy, stable man. But now that you're gone, he doesn't need the facade anymore. And I'm not sure the money is enough to keep him quiet. He knows where I live. He knows where my son goes to school. The fear in her voice was palpable, contagious. I looked around at the lit balconies of the neighbours, suddenly feeling exposed. What do you want me to do, Eva? We have to meet. I have something else. Something that isn't on paper. A more conclusive piece of evidence. Something that could sink him. But I need guarantees. I need to know that if I give it to you, you and your lawyer can protect yourselves. And me. And my son. Claudia. She was the key, the professional, the one who would know what to do with conclusive evidence. My lawyer is trustworthy the best. Her name is Claudia Hayes. Can she help us? There was a silence on the other end, then a resigned sigh. Okay, but just the three of us. In a public but discreet place, and fast, before he realizes we're in contact. We agreed on a place, the cafe at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the MoMA. Crowded with tourists and students, always bustling, easy to get lost in the crowd. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., Eva would come from, wherever she was hiding. I'll be with Claudia, I said. Okay. And Leah, she hesitated. Come alert. And don't tell anyone else. Anyone. The call cut off. I stood trembling on the balcony, the phone clutched to my chest. I had a date with fear, and with the only person who might know what kind of monster I had been sharing my bed with for 12 years. I sent a quick message to Claudia, meeting Eva. Tomorrow at 11 at the MoMA. She has something else. Says it can sink him. Claudia's response was immediate. I'll be there. Don't bring the documents. And watch your back. This is starting to feel really bad. The night was endless. Every shadow in the apartment seemed to move. Every noise from the pipes was an intruder. I went to bed fully clothed. Phone in hand, mentally reviewing the documents, Eva's voice, Mark's impassive face as he handed me the divorce papers. Never again. Now those words sounded like a much deeper threat. The next morning, I met Claudia in front of the MoMA. She was wearing large sunglasses and a casual jacket, but her posture was tense alert. Everything okay? She asked, scrutinizing me. Nervous, but okay. I've been digging, she said in a low voice as we entered the museum's vast concrete lobby. Eva's NDA with the bank is ironclad, and the severance was deposited into an account in a relative's name. Very clean, very professional. Mark covered his tracks. If she talks, she risks having to pay back every cent plus damages, and possibly worse. That's why she's scared, I murmured. The cafe was half full with the hum of conversations and the clinking of cups. We chose a table in a corner with a good view of the entrance. Claudia sat with her back to the wall. I faced it. We waited. At 11:05, there was no sign of Eva. At 11:10, I started to get anxious. Had she backed out? Did something happen? Calm down, Claudia said, but her gaze was also scanning the door incessantly. At 11:15, I saw her. Eva Jenkins walked into the cafe, and I barely recognized her. The few times I had seen her at Mark's office, she was always impeccable, discreet skirt suits, hair in a severe bun. Now she was wearing worn-out jeans, a hooded sweatshirt, and her hair longer and with grey streaks was loose and unkempt. She looked like she had aged 10 years. Her eyes, once efficient and serene, now darted around the room filled with animal fear. She spotted us instantly. She made her way through the tables, moving awkwardly as if carrying an invisible weight. She sat down across from us without a word, panting slightly. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice a thread. She smelled of cheap coffee and cigarettes. "Eva, this is Claudia, my lawyer," I said, introducing them. Eva barely nodded at Claudia, her eyes fixed on me. "I don't have much time. I think they followed me to the station. I'm not sure." Claudia leaned forward, her voice low but firm. "Eva, you need to calm down. We're in a public place. You're safe for now. You said you had something for us. Something conclusive." Eva swallowed hard, nodding convulsively. She reached into the inner pocket of her sweatshirt and pulled out a small, wrinkled white envelope. She slid it across the table toward me. "Here it is. It's a copy. The original. I have the original hidden in a safe place in case something happens to me." With fingers that barely obeyed, I opened the envelope. Inside, there were no papers. There was a small black USB flash drive with no markings. "What is this?" I asked, looking at her. Eva's eyes filled with tears, but of rage, not sadness. "It's his insurance policy and his death sentence. Inside there are recordings, conversations between Mark and some of his clients. They talk about amounts transfers, bribes to officials, and how to launder money through shell companies in Panama and Andorra. It's not just conjecture, Leah. It's their voices. They're all there." Claudia held her breath. I sat frozen, staring at the small black device. It was more powerful, more dangerous than all the documents in the world. How did you get this?" Claudia asked, regaining her composure before I did. Eva managed a bitter, sad smile. "Because I was a good secretary. The best. When I started to suspect, I started to protect myself. He would sometimes ask me to set up calls from a secure line in a soundproof room. Or so he thought. He didn't know that I had installed software on the computer in that room that recorded everything. For months." A tear escaped and she wiped it away, angrily. I was scared. I wanted something, anything to defend myself with if he tried to blame me. And in the end, I used it. I told him I had the recordings, that if he hurt me or my son, they would be made public. That's why he gave me the money. That's why I signed his damn NDA. That's why I left. "But you're here now," I said almost in a whisper. "Because money doesn't take away the fear," she whispered, looking at me intently. "And because I know he won't stop. He has more to lose now. His divorce, his reputation. And you with those documents from your mother. You're a threat. If he decides you're a problem, he'll come for you. And I can't live like this anymore, hiding, looking over my shoulder. I'd rather fight. With this," she gestured to the USB drive with her chin, "you have a lawyer. You can use it to protect yourselves, to sink him once and for all. But you have to promise me one thing." "Name it," Claudia said, her voice grave, serious. "Protection. For me and my son. If this comes out, I need a guarantee that I won't go to jail, that my testimony will be considered that of a victim, not an accomplice. And I need to disappear afterward. A new name, a new place, away from him and his people." Claudia exchanged a look with me. What Eva was asking for was huge, almost impossible. But what she was offering was the bomb that could destroy Mark. "I can't promise you anything right now, Eva," Claudia said honestly. "But I can start making moves, talk to prosecutors, people in the Justice Department. With this, she gestured to the USB drive. You have leverage, but I need to hear what's on there and we need a plan. Eva nodded, relieved and terrified at the same time. Take it, listen to it, then we'll talk. But you have to be fast. He's not stupid. If he suspects we're in contact. She suddenly cut herself off. Her gaze, which had been fixed on us, drifted toward the cafe entrance. Her expression transformed into pure terror. Her face went ashen. Oh my God, she murmured. What's wrong? I asked, turning to follow her gaze. At the entrance, standing there calmly scanning the room, were two men. They were in suits, but not office suits. They were dark, tailored in a way that didn't hide the broad athletic builds of the men wearing them. They weren't looking at their phones, not talking to each other. Their eyes, hidden behind sunglasses, methodically swept the room like two scanners. They're his, Eva gasped, starting to tremble. I knew it. They followed me. Stay calm, Claudia commanded in a sharp whisper, but her own posture had tensed like a wire. Don't look at them. Head down. We're leaving. You wait a minute and go out the other exit, the one to the courtyard. But Eva wasn't listening anymore. Panic had taken over. In a sudden movement, she stood up, knocking over her glass of water. The noise drew the gaze of one of the men. His eyes behind the dark glasses locked onto us. Take this, Eva said. And before we could react, she slid something else under the table to me. Not the envelope. It was another identical USB drive, but with a small green sticker on one end. It's the copy. The other one. Keep it. And don't trust anyone. Anyone. And then she turned and ran not toward the courtyard exit, but back toward the main entrance, dodging tables and chairs, in a desperate and obviously futile attempt to lose the men. Eva, I shouted, half rising, but Claudia grabbed my arm with force. No, sit down. Now. The two men exchanged a quick look. One of them, the taller one, went after Eva at a fast, determined pace. Not running, but with terrifying efficiency. The other one stood planted at the entrance, his hidden eyes fixed directly on us. It was a surveillance, a warning. We see you. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt my chest. Claudia, pale but serene, took a sip of her coffee as if nothing was wrong. With the hand she had under the table, she picked up the USB drive with the green sticker and slipped it into her purse. Don't look over there, she murmured, with a forced smile on her lips. Drink your coffee. Right now. We're just two friends taking a break. Nothing more. I did as she said, bringing the cup to my lips with a trembling hand. The coffee tasted like ash. Outside, through the large windows, I saw the tall man grab Eva by the arm, not violently, but with unsettling firmness, just as she reached the lobby. She struggled, but it was useless. He leaned in and said something in her ear. She stopped fighting, her body slumped, defeated. Then the man led her gently but firmly toward the exit, disappearing into the crowd of tourists. The other man, the one who had stayed at the entrance, looked at us for one more second. Then he gave a slight nod, an almost imperceptible gesture that wasn't a greeting but a reminder. We're watching you. And he turned and followed his partner. They were on, and they had taken Eva. Claudia and I sat there motionless, the silence between us thick with terror. In my pocket, the first USB drive, the one Eva had initially given me, felt like it was burning. And in Claudia's purse, the backup copy with the green sticker weighed like a tombstone. The meeting had lasted less than 10 minutes. We had obtained the evidence that could destroy Mark, and in doing so, we had just peered into an abyss, far darker and deeper than we could have ever imagined. He wasn't just a con man. He had men who tailed people who silenced them. Claudia calmly placed a few bills on the table. Let's go. Separately. You take a cab from the plaza. I'll walk through the side streets. Meet at my apartment in an hour. Don't go straight home. Take a roundabout route. And for the love of God, Leah, do not lose that drive. I nodded, unable to speak. My legs felt like jelly when I stood up. Stepping out into the blinding light of the plaza, the world looked normal. People laughing, pigeons flying, the sound of skateboards on the MoMA ramps. But I didn't live in that normal world anymore. I lived in another one, a world of shadows, of secret transfers, of dangerous recordings, and of men in dark suits who watched you from the entrance of a cafe. And in my pocket pulsed the small black device that held all of my ex-husband's secrets. It was my weapon, and if I wasn't careful, my death sentence. Eva's warning echoed in my ears louder than ever. He's not just a banker. Now finally I was beginning to understand what that meant. The taxi dropped me off 3 blocks from Claudia's apartment. I followed her instructions to the letter, walking aimlessly, turning down random streets, stopping in front of shop windows to check reflections, ducking into a pharmacy, and leaving without buying anything. Fear was a metallic taste in my mouth, a knot of ice in my stomach that wouldn't melt. Every person who passed too close, every motorcycle that slowed down, made me hold my breath. The men in dark suits, their sunglasses, the image of Eva being led away with that brutal firmness, it all replayed in my head like a nightmarish loop. Finally, I reached Claudia's door. I rang the bell with our agreed-upon code, 2 long, 1 short. She opened it instantly, pulled me inside, and slammed the door shut, throwing all 3 deadbolts. "Were you followed?" she asked, without preamble, her eyes scanning me. "No, I don't think so. I wandered all over. I didn't see anyone." Good. For now. Her apartment, normally a cozy chaos of books and coffee cups, now looked like a military command center. She had closed the metal security shutters on the windows. Her laptop was open on the table next to a small device that looked like a router, but which she identified as a portable encryptor. Beside it, on a felt cloth, lay the 2 USB drives, the black one Eva had given me first, and the identical one with the small green sticker. "I haven't touched them," Claudia said, pointing at them. "They could have a tracker or even some kind of malware. We have to be cautious." "You think Eva would have set us up?" I asked, unable to believe it. The terror in her eyes had been too real. "I don't think so. But fear makes people do stupid things, or others force them to. Those men weren't normal private security, too professional, too quiet. Mark has resources, but this smells like something else. High-level protection or hired thugs from another league." The idea made my stomach clench even tighter. He's not just a banker. And Eva, what will they have done to her? Claudia shrugged, but her expression was tense. "I don't know. For now, they'll probably just scare her, lean on her. If they wanted to hurt her, they wouldn't have taken her from a museum in broad daylight. But the fact that they came for her so quickly means they either had her under constant surveillance or they have access to her communications. Or ours." She looked at me intently. "Have you used your personal phone to talk about this with anyone else? Any messages, any calls?" "No, only with you. And you were the one who found out about her severance package. I used professional firewall databases, but it's not impossible to trace queries if you have the right access." She sighed. "It doesn't matter. The damage is done. Now we know Mark plays dirty and doesn't mess around, and they know we've met with Eva. We're a target, Leah. Both of us." The weight of her words settled in the room. This wasn't just a legal battle over a divorce. It was something darker, more dangerous. "So what do we do? Call the police and tell them what?" Claudia asked with a hint of bitterness. That your ex-husband's secretary, who signed possibly fraudulent documents, gave us a flash drive with alleged recordings, and then left with two sinister-looking men all in the middle of a museum full of people who saw nothing wrong. Without Eva to testify, we're two paranoid women with a USB stick full of audio files of unknown origin. Mark has expensive lawyers and probably friends in high places. They would discredit us in 5 minutes. She was right. Without Eva, without her testimony, we were two scorned women with a conspiracy theory. But we have the recordings, I said, pointing to the devices. If they are what she says they are. First, we need to know exactly what they are. And for that, we need to listen to them in a secure environment. Very secure. She spent the next hour preparing what she called a sterile environment, disconnecting the internet router using an old offline laptop with no personal data and connecting the encryptor. With tweezers, she picked up the black USB drive without the green sticker. Just in case, she murmured and plugged it into the port. The computer recognized it. There was no explosion, no auto-executing virus, just an open folder with a list of audio files, many numbered by date. The names were cryptic. Meeting December 1st, 2025. Call C, March 3rd, 2025. Dinner with J.M., November 15th, 2024. Claudia clicked on the first one. A player opened, a moment of silence with some background noise, and then a voice that cut through me like a knife. Mark's voice. Clear, cold, professional, just as I had heard it 1,000 times at home on the phone. The transfer to the Luxembourg account needs to happen before Friday. Use the Virgin Islands channel as an intermediary. The brokerage percentage is already agreed upon with Mr. Cover. A rough, unknown male voice, with a slight Slavic accent, replied, Cover wants guarantees. The public works project in Miami is delayed. The permits are being handled, Mark cut in impatiently. That's what he pays for. Tell him his money will be safe and that the next phase, the port concession in Savannah, requires another investment. Same structure. Business as usual. Business as usual, the other voice repeated, with a tone that could have been approval or disdain. Fine. I'll contact you next week. A click, like a phone hanging up. The recording ended. Claudia and I looked at each other. We didn't need any more. In less than a minute, it was clear. This wasn't just about tax havens. It was bribery, corruption at the level of public works. Mr. Cover, a name a thread to pull. My God, Claudia whispered, her face pale. She clicked on another file. This time it was a three-way conversation. Mark's voice, another voice I recognized with horror. It was Alberto Reyes, the mayor of a major southern city. A man who had dined at our house several times, always smiling and telling jokes. And a third voice, a woman's hard and sharp, whom Mark introduced as my associate, Ms. Valenti. They were talking about clearing environmental hurdles in exchange for a campaign contribution. Figures. Account numbers in Andorra. A payment in services through a shell company. File after file, each one was a door to a deeper pit of filth. Money laundering from dubious sources through the bank's investment funds. Pressuring journalists through veiled bribes. Conversations with a certain Commissioner Rojas about shelving certain inquiries in exchange for inside information on police operations. The scope was staggering. Mark wasn't just a greedy banker. He was the center of a web, the lubricant that allowed dirty money to become respectable bribes to look like campaign donations, and criminals to seem like respectable businessmen. I sat down, my legs weak, listening to the voice of the man I had shared my life with methodically destroy any shred of decency. He wasn't just a crook. He was a corrupter, a cancer. That's enough, Claudia said, after an hour stopping the playback. Her face was grim, but a fierce light shone in her eyes. This is huge, Leah. This isn't just your divorce. This is a time bomb that could blow up half the political and business establishment in this country. What do we do with it? I asked, my voice barely a thread. The initial fear had given way to a deep disgust, a cold rage. On our own, nothing. This has to be taken to an anti-corruption prosecutor, a judge. But we have to do it carefully. If we just release this, they'll crush us before it ever reaches a courtroom. Mark and his entire network. She rubbed her temples. We need Eva. Her testimony is crucial to authenticate the recordings, to explain how she got them. Without her, they can claim they're manipulated, that they're fake. And we need more. Physical evidence. Something that corroborates what's heard here. Real account numbers, real bank transfers. We have the statements from my mother's box, I said. Yes, and they're a good starting point. They match some of the conversations. But we need more. And there's another problem. Claudia looked at me directly. Names are mentioned in these recordings. Politicians, businessmen, a police commissioner. These people are not going to sit idly by if this comes to light. They will fight back. And we, you and I, are very easy targets. Silence settled between us, heavy with the weight of what we had just heard. The USB drive wasn't a weapon. It was a depth charge, and we were in a rubber dinghy. There's something else, I said, remembering. Eva said she was afraid for her son, that Mark had threatened her with him. If those men have her, what will they do to her? What will they do to the boy? Claudia pressed her lips together. I don't know. But if they have her, it's to pressure her to keep her from talking. If they think she's already spoken to us and given us this, then her value as a hostage decreases. Unless, she paused, her mind working at high speed, unless they use her to get to us. What do you mean? A new chill ran through me. You think they'll try to contact us, use her to negotiate? It's a possibility. Or... Claudia picked up the other USB drive, the one with the green sticker with the tweezers. This could be a trap. It could have a virus that wipes our whole system when we connect it, or a tracker, or who knows what. Eva wouldn't do that, I insisted, though with less conviction. Panic could make anyone a traitor. Maybe not willingly, but if they have her, they can force her. Claudia examined the small device. We can't plug this in here. I need an isolated computer in a secure location, and I need help. Help from who we can't trust anyone. Eva said so. Eva didn't know Jack, Claudia said. And for the first time since this nightmare began, a shadow of a smile touched her lips. Jack Riley, an old friend, an investigative journalist, a real one, the kind that takes down governments. He's a peculiar guy, but he's good, very good, and he has few friends in the halls of power. If anyone can help us navigate this, verify the names on these recordings, and find a safe way to make it public, it's him. A journalist. It was a huge risk, but it was also a way out. We couldn't just sit on this, and we couldn't go to the police alone. I'd trust him with my life, Claudia said without hesitation. And with yours. He and I. Well, it's a long story. But yes, we can trust him. Besides, he hates guys like Mark the Predators in tailored suits. It's his specialty. I looked at the computer, where the sound waves of the malignant recordings were still on the screen. I looked at the USB drives, small pieces of plastic containing dynamite. We didn't have many options. Okay, I said, the decision settling like a stone inside me. Call him. Claudia nodded. She used a disposable burner phone she had stashed in a drawer. Always good to have one for emergencies, she said as she powered it on and dialed a number from memory. The conversation was brief and cryptic. Jack, it's Claudia. I need to see you. It's urgent. Big story. The kind you like. Yes, the usual, but bigger. Tomorrow, the usual place, noon. I'm bringing a friend. Bring your toy chest. Thanks. Sedon, she hung up, removed the SIM card, and broke it in half. We'll meet him tomorrow at a secure location. Until then, we're staying here. You're not going back to your apartment. It's the first place they'll watch. I have a sofa bed. And tomorrow we start to fight for real. The night at Claudia's was long and restless. Every noise from the street made me jump. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's face. Not the cold, distant one from the divorce, but another one. One I had perhaps glimpsed without wanting to see it, focused, calculating, ruthless, as he talked about bribes and money laundering on those recordings. How many of our dinners, our parties had been a front for this? How many of his business trips had been to meet with men like Cover? The next morning we prepared carefully. Claudia gave me a baseball cap and large sunglasses. She wore a different jacket and put her hair up differently. We left separately 10 minutes apart, taking different routes to the meeting point Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn. It's quiet, spacious, has lots of exits, and Jack likes the symbolism, Claudia had said with irony. The day was grey and windy, fitting for the location. The rows of mausoleums and crypts stretched out in silent lines. I found Claudia next to an old, elaborate tomb, and beside her a man. Jack Riley was not what I expected. He was about 50, with salt and pepper hair, a few days' worth of stubble, and slightly crooked glasses. He wore a worn leather jacket and old jeans, but his eyes, an intense, scrutinizing grey, missed nothing. He looked me up and down in an instant and nodded as if I had passed some invisible test. "So you're the banker's ex-wife," he said without preamble. His voice was gravelly, like a heavy smoker's. "Leah," I said, shaking the hand he offered. It was strong and calloused. "Jack." Claudia gave me the rundown. Divorce diverted funds scared secretary men in black. Sounds like a bad movie, but from the look on my friend here. He gestured to Claudia with his chin. "I'm guessing the movie is pretty damn good. You bring the footage." Claudia pulled the black USB drive wrapped in a tissue from her pocket. "Here, recordings. Conversations between Mark Sterling and various subjects, including, we believe, a Mr. Cover, possibly Balkan, and the mayor of Miami, among others. Topics: bribery, money laundering, influence peddling." Jack's eyes lit up with a professional, almost predatory interest. "Interesting. And the source?" "The secretary, Eva Jenkins. She recorded everything. She gave us this yesterday, and then some men took her away. We don't know where she is. Took her away in broad daylight." Jack whistled softly. "Your ex has long arms. Well, let's see what we're dealing with." He pulled a small, rugged-looking tablet and an external drive from his worn backpack. He connected the USB drive through a cable that didn't plug directly into the tablet. "Physical isolation?" he murmured. He listened for 15 minutes, skipping from file to file, his eyebrows rising higher and higher. Finally, he shut off the tablet and stared into the middle distance, thoughtful. "This is a cluster bomb," he said at last. "Names, figures, methods. It's prime stuff. The audio quality is good. The voices are clear. With a good analysis, it can be verified. But—" he paused and looked at both of us. "It's a death sentence for you two. I mean, if this comes out without a strategy, without protection, they will trample you. And I don't just mean your ex-sweetheart. I mean the whole network exposed here. People with a lot to lose and the resources to make problems disappear." "We know who," Claudia said, her voice firm. "That's why we called you. We need a plan. We need to verify, we need a safe exit, and we need to find Eva. She's our key witness." Jack nodded, scratching his beard. "Okay, 3 fronts. First, Eva. I'll pull some strings. See if anyone's seen anything. It's hard to make a person disappear in a city like this without leaving a trace. Second, the recordings. I'll verify the names, the references to public works, the bank accounts. I need access to that other evidence you mentioned, the bank statements. Third, and most important, we need a secure channel. A prosecutor, a judge, someone clean and bulletproof to take all this to. That will take time. In the meantime, you two have to go dark. No contacts, no routines. Change your phones, your habits. Claudia, you have resources. You know how. You think we're in real danger? I asked, still trying to process it. Jack looked at me, and for the first time his expression softened slightly, not with pity, but with grim realism. Leah, on these recordings, your ex talks about handling permits and shelving investigations like he's talking about the weather. The people he's talking about aren't just angry executives, they're criminals. And criminals, when they're cornered, don't call their lawyer. They make problems disappear. You two are a very big problem right now. So yes, real danger. The real kind. His words, spoken so calmly, were more terrifying than any shout. They gave form to a fear that had been vague until now. What do we do? Claudia asked, taking on the role of commanding officer. You two hide. I investigate. We communicate only through secure channels. I'll give you a number and encrypted chat. Once a day, contact. That's it. And when I have something concrete, when I've found Eva, or verified enough material, we mount the assault. But it has to be flawless. One shot. If we miss, they crush us. It was a vague, dangerous plan, but it was a plan. I nodded, feeling both terrified and, for the first time since I signed that damned divorce, a glimmer of determination. It wasn't just for the money, or even for revenge. It was for seeing that machine of corruption shattered. For all the Eva Jenkinses of the world used and discarded. For my mother, who knew before I did. Okay, I said, and my voice sounded stronger than I expected. Let's do it. Jack nodded. He packed up his devices. Good. Now, let's split up. Claudia, take Leah somewhere safe. A cheap motel paid in cash, a trusted friend's apartment, whatever. But something with no connection to you. And you, he looked at me. Be patient. This could take weeks. Or it could blow up tomorrow. Be ready for anything. We shook hands, a dry, quick grip. Then Jack turned and disappeared among the tombs, just another ghost in the city of the dead. Claudia and I left the cemetery through different exits. I walked to the subway station with my cap pulled low, my heart pounding. We had an ally. We had a plan, and we had the proof that could destroy Mark. But I also had the sharp, knife-like feeling that the net was closing in. The men from yesterday, Eva's disappearance, Jack's warning. Mark wouldn't just sit back. He had been playing a very dirty game for a very long time. And now that he knew I held the cards, he wouldn't hesitate to change the rules. Forever. The okay I had sent him wasn't a surrender. It was a declaration of war. And the war had just begun. The safe house turned out to be an apartment in a working-class neighborhood of Queens that Jack used for his more sensitive investigations. It was a tiny, anonymous apartment on a fourth-floor walk-up, with furniture from the 70s and the smell of stale smoke and burnt coffee, but it had an encrypted internet connection, blackout curtains, and according to Jack, no known association with any of us. It was our hideout. I spent the next 48 hours there, locked in like a scared rat. Claudia came and went, bringing food news and mostly anxiety. Jack had vanished into the web, tracing the names from the recordings, following the money trail, trying to locate Eva. I, powerless, could only wait, listening to the audio files over and over on headphones, until Mark's voice became as familiar and repulsive as the buzzing of a fly. It was on the third day, while Claudia was reviewing the divorce documents for the 100th time with a professional's focus, that she let out a curse so loud it made me jump from the armchair where I was trying and failing to sleep. "That clever bastard!" she exclaimed, jabbing her finger at a clause in the contract I had signed without reading in that white marble kitchen. "What is it?" "The agreement has a loophole. A loophole the size of the Brooklyn Bridge," she said, her eyes shining with a mix of fury and triumph. "Look here. Clause 4.7 on the division of identified and declared assets. It says verbatim, both parties agree to the distribution of assets and property detailed in the attached Schedule A, considering it complete and binding." "Iki." "Yeah, I signed that," I said, not understanding her excitement. "But Schedule A only includes the assets Mark declared. The apartment, the cars, the known joint bank accounts." Claudia was practically bouncing in her seat. "It does not include because he didn't declare them the assets he diverted to the Cayman Islands or Panama or any other black hole. And according to the law, Leah, since you were married under community property rules, you are entitled to half of all assets acquired during the marriage, declared and undeclared. This agreement, by referring only to Schedule A, does not extinguish your right to claim what was not declared. It's an open door. We can sue him for concealment of marital assets. We can invalidate this divorce and claim half of those 2 million and of everything else he's hidden." The news left me stunned. It wasn't just a matter of revenge or exposing his corruption. It was something tangible, legal mine. It was justice, or at least its financial shadow. But with what we know with the recording, isn't sending him to prison enough? Why do we need the money? Claudia sat down across from me, her expression turning serious. "For 2 reasons. First, because it's yours. He stole it from you. Second, and more importantly, because a civil lawsuit for concealment of assets is a stab in the back he's not expecting. It distracts him. It forces him to spend time, money, and energy on a legal front while we, or Jack, prepare the main blow with the recordings. It's a diversionary tactic, but one with teeth. And it hits him where it hurts most, his wallet and his ego." The encrypted phone Jack had left us buzzed. It was a short, cryptic text message. "Got something. Back in an hour." The hour of waiting felt eternal. When Jack finally walked into the apartment, he brought the cold smell of the street and a grim expression. He was carrying a brown cardboard folder under his arm. "Eva," he said without preamble, placing the folder on the kitchen table. "She's in a hospital on the outskirts of the city. Admitted last night. Accidental fall, according to the report. Broken ribs, concussion." The air was knocked out of me. Claudia let out a choked, "Oh my God." "An accident? I don't know for sure," Jack said, pulling the printed photograph from the folder. It was a grainy image of a hospital's emergency entrance. A gurney was visible, and on it a figure with a bandaged face that could have been Eva. My contacts in the health department slipped me this. She was admitted unconscious. She hasn't filed a report, but the police stopped by. Routine check, they say. "Routine check for a fall?" Claudia asked skeptically. "Exactly." Jack nodded. "I think it was a warning. This is what happens when you talk." But they left her alive, probably because they still see her as useful, or because her death would attract more attention. The boy is fine, by the way, with his grandparents in Jersey. Looks like they didn't touch him. A bittersweet relief washed over me. She was alive but broken and silenced. Our key witness was out of commission, likely too terrified to speak, even if she could. "And the other thing?" Claudia asked, referring to the recordings. Jack managed a cold, humorless smile. "Ah, That's the bombshell. I've been verifying. Mr. Kova is Dragan Kova, a Serbian construction magnate with very, very dark ties to Balkan mafias. He's under investigation in 3 countries for money laundering. The Miami mayor, Alberto Reyes, you already knew. And Ms. Valente is Isabel Valente, a corporate lawyer who's been linked to half a dozen illegal campaign finance scandals, always walking away clean. And that's just the appetizer. There are more names. A federal judge in New York, a former director of the EPA, and a certain Commissioner Rojas, who from the description can only be Rojas from the FBI's white-collar crime division. He's impeccably clean on paper, but from what I hear on the recording, he's the one who buries inconvenient investigations. It's a network, I murmured, overwhelmed. A huge network. It's a sewer, Jack corrected. And your ex-husband, my dear, is not just a banker. He's the head plumber, the one who opens and closes the valves to let the filth flow without obstruction. These recordings are the key to exposing the entire system. And the other drive, I asked, remembering the USB with the green sticker that Claudia had kept. Have you analyzed it? Jack's expression grew even darker. He pulled a small portable device from his backpack. Yes, and it's disturbing. It's not more of the same. It's something personal, very personal, for you. He connected the device to a small screen. They weren't audio files. They were photos and videos. Of me. The blood froze in my veins. They were images of me taken in my old house in New York, in the bedroom, in the bathroom. Some were from years ago, when Mark and I were still faking a normal relationship. Others were more recent, from the last few months of our cold coexistence. The angles were strange, taken from hidden spots behind a mirror on a bookshelf. Spy cams. But the worst, what made me leap up with a strangled cry, were the most recent videos recorded in the Boston apartment. In the shower getting dressed, even one from just 3 days ago, taking out the trash at night. They were professional, clear, invasive. Oh, God! I gasped, backing away from the screen as if it had burned me. How? Eva, Jack said in a grave voice. There's a text note on the drive. Brief. It says, "He made me. He threatened my son. He had cameras in your New York house. When you left, he put one in your mother's apartment to watch you. I'm sorry." Claudia put a hand on my shoulder, which was trembling uncontrollably. I felt sick. Mark hadn't just robbed me, betrayed me, despised me. He had spied on me. He had violated every inch of my privacy, turning my home, my refuge, into a surveillance set. And he had forced Eva, a woman he already had under his thumb, to do it. The disgust and rage were so intense they left me breathless. This is harassment. It's a crime, Claudia said. But her voice sounded hollow, knowing we were pawns in a much larger game. It's more than harassment, Jack corrected, turning off the screen. It's a message, a reminder of his power. I'm watching you. I know your every move, and it's insurance. If you release the financial recordings, he can release this. He can destroy you publicly in a different way. It's classic blackmail. I collapsed into a chair, my head in my hands. The feeling of vulnerability was total, absolute. There was no escape. Wherever I went, he could see me, or at least he had been able to. We have to report it, I said, but it sounded like a weak plea. And we will, Claudia affirmed, her lawyer's tone returning. But just reporting the cameras isn't enough. We need to link it to everything else. We need these images to be part of his criminal pattern of coercion. On their own, his lawyer will say it was the regrettable intrusion of a disgruntled, fired employee, Eva, and that he knew nothing about it. The financial recordings are the core, Jack agreed, thinking. This is the collateral damage to discredit you, the scorned ex-wife. It's a dirty tactic, but it's secondary. Although, he paused, his journalist's eyes narrowing. It gives us an idea of his mindset. He's a controller, a psychopath in a silk tie. He can't stand not having control. And now with Eva out of commission and you two sniffing around his dirty laundry, he's going to counterattack. And it won't be with veiled threats. What do you mean? Claudia asked. So far, he's used discretion. Money, private threats. But if he feels cornered, if he sees his network is in danger, he'll change tactics. He'll attack in public to discredit you before you can discredit him. As if his words were a self-fulfilling prophecy. Claudia's normal phone, not the encrypted one, began to vibrate on the table. It was her partner from the law firm. Claudia answered on speaker. Claudia, are you seeing the news? The voice on the other end said tense. What news? The Digital Insider just published an article about you. Well, about your new client, Leah Miller. A mortal chill ran down my spine. Claudia quickly opened her laptop and pulled up the page. The headline appeared on the screen, Black and Brutal Wife of Banking VP Resorts to Blackmail After $1 Million Divorce. Below it was a picture of me taken from God knows where, smiling at some long-ago gala. The article was a vomit of half-truths and blatant lies. It told the story of an ambitious, resentful woman, Leah Miller, who, unsatisfied with the generous divorce settlement from her ex-husband, the respected Vice President Mark Sterling, had resorted to blackmail. It claimed without evidence that she was alleging he had hidden funds. And the worst, the low blow it suggested she was using intimate and privately obtained material to pressure him. It quoted sources close to the executive, who spoke of my emotional instability and my obsession, Pierre, with ruining an exemplary man's career. It's a classic strategy, Jack murmured, looking at the screen with contempt. Discredit the victim, paint you as crazy and extortionist. That way, when the real accusations come out, the public already has a narrative. Oh yeah, that's the unhinged ex-wife who tried to blackmail him. But this is defamation, Claudia exploded. There's no proof of any of this. They don't need proof, Jack said bitterly. They just need to sow doubt, poison the well. And look down in the comments, it's already working. I scrolled down. The comments were a feast of misogyny and contempt. Another gold digger who wants more money. Women like this are disgusting. Poor husband works hard and ends up with a harpy. My heart was pounding so hard my ears hurt. It was my name, my life, my dignity torn to shreds in public. Claudia's phone rang again. This time, it was a private number. Yes, she answered, her voice trembling with rage. The voice that came from the speaker was cold, professional, and vaguely familiar. It was Richard Solar Mark's lawyer, the same one who had drafted the divorce agreement. Ms. Hayes. Richard Solar speaking. I'm calling on behalf of my client, Mr. Mark Sterling. I have seen with great concern the infamous accusations published in certain media outlets. My client wishes to make it clear that they are completely false and defamatory. However, given their gravity and the clear damage to his reputation, he has been forced to file a complaint for extortion and slander against your client, Ms. Leah Miller. The court notification will arrive at your office in the coming hours. Good afternoon. He hung up. The silence in the room was absolute. Mark hadn't just launched a media attack. He had taken the first legal step. He was cornering us, trying to criminalize me before I could make a move. It's a masterful play, Jack said, breaking the silence. He puts you on the defensive. Now you're the accused. You have to defend yourself against extortion charges. Meanwhile, any leak about the recordings or the Cayman funds will look like a desperate counterattack from an accused woman. It's dirty, it's brutal, and it's very, very effective. Claudia stood up, her face a mask of concentrated fury. All right. He plays dirty, we play dirty. And with the truth on our side. Jack, I need everything you have on Cova, on the mayor, on Valente. I need names, dates, transfers that match the recordings things. And I need a plan to get this out in a way they can't ignore. I'm on it, Jack said. But I need more time, a couple of days at least. And you need a loudspeaker. Someone with credibility to publish this in a way that can't be swept under the rug. A journalist like you? I asked hopefully. He shook his head. I'm a freelancer, good at what I do, but I don't have the weight of a major outlet. We need someone from a major newspaper or a TV network. Someone with editorial protection, their own lawyers. Someone who loves to take down powerful people. Suddenly, Claudia's lips curved into a slow, dangerous smile. I have someone. Javier Montero, head of investigations at the New York Times. He's a bulldog, and I owe him a favor. Or rather, he owes me one from when I saved his ass in the Vulture Fund case. He's trustworthy, and he hates corrupt bastards almost as much as I do. Call him, Jack said. But be careful. If Mark has a commissioner in his pocket, he could have ears in newsrooms. Use the secure phone. While Claudia prepared the call, I stared at the laptop screen at my own image, smiling stupidly under an infamous headline. The rage had turned from a fire into something cold, hard, and sharp like steel. Mark had made a mistake, a huge mistake. He thought he could scare me, humiliate me, make me back down like he always had. He thought his money, his contacts, his dirty tactics would work. But he didn't count on me having nothing left to lose. He didn't count on the okay I sent him not being submission, but acceptance. Acceptance of the war. Acceptance that I would have to destroy him to survive. And now I had the weapons. I had the recordings. I had Claudia. I had Jack. And soon we would have a journalist with a massive platform. I looked at Claudia speaking in low tones on the encrypted phone, her eyes shining with determination. I looked at Jack, typing furiously on his computer, unearthing the dirty bones of Mark's network. The fear was still there, a knot of ice in my stomach. The danger was real, and now it was public. But for the first time, I didn't feel like a victim adrift. I felt like a soldier on the edge of a battlefield I hadn't chosen, but one I was determined to win. Mark Sterling had declared war, and I, Leah Miller, was ready to hit back with everything I had. Starting with that loophole in the divorce contract that was going to cost him much, much more than $2 million. Starting with the truth that echoed in those recordings, waiting to be shouted from the rooftops. The game had just begun, and he had no idea what cards I was playing. Montero's publication was a brutal blow. Mark was suspended from his position at the bank. His response was immediate. He filed a complaint for extortion against me, backed by false evidence. Sympathetic media outlets launched a smear campaign, painting me as an unhinged ex-wife. My name and photo were everywhere. Claudia counterattacked with the civil suit for concealment of assets. But Jack brought darker news. He had identified the names from the recordings, a businessman linked to the Balkan Mafia, a corrupt mayor, and a certain Commissioner Rojas of the FBI's Economic Crimes Unit. The network was enormous. Furthermore, the second USB drive contained the intimate images of me taken secretly. Eva. When Jack finally reached her, confirmed that Mark had forced her. It was his insurance, his final blackmail. The tension exploded when Claudia was attacked, leaving our hideout. They beat her and stole all her materials. From the hospital, she left me a terrifying message. Tell your friend his okay has a price, and it just went up. They had crossed a line. It was no longer a legal battle. It was a dirty war. And with Claudia hurt, I knew I had to be the one to make the next move. When Montero called to say he would publish the second part of his investigation, exposing the mayor and the commissioner, I knew it was time. I couldn't stay hidden. I had to take the war to his turf, to his world. Eva called me from a burner phone, her voice a thread, filled with something more than fear, remorse. The photos, the ones from your house, the ones from Boston. It was me. I put them there. But he made me Leah. He threatened to hurt my son. He had cameras in the New York apartment. When you left, he ordered me to install one in your mother's place to monitor your movements, to have something to discredit you with if necessary. I listened, my stomach a knot of ice. I had known, but hearing it from her was different. Why are you calling now, Eva? Why confess? Because of Claudia. Her voice broke. That changes everything. He told me it was just threats, that they would never resort to violence. But now your friend is in a hospital, and they're threatening me again with my son. They said if I don't get you to back down, something will happen to him. I'm not safe anymore, Leah. Not even if I hide. An idea began to form in my mind, clear and dangerous. What if we give them something bigger? Something that destroys them first? What are you talking about? The recording of Commissioner Rojas, the one where he talks about burying cases. It's the most explosive. We have to use it, not through a newspaper, directly in his face where his whole world can see. Eva was silent for a moment. Where? At his annual charity gala. At the Met. It's in 2 days. He'll be there pretending everything is normal. The press will be there. His donors, his accomplices, everyone. That's insane. It's a trap. It's our only play. I need your help, Eva. I need you to confirm everything, to give your testimony to Montero so he can publish it right after. So when the bomb goes off inside, the explanation is already out there. No turning back. She took a deep breath on the other end of the line. Okay, I'll do it. For my son and for everything. But Leah, be careful. If he finds out about this plan, he won't find out. We just have to... The call cut off abruptly. Not a busy signal, but a dry, absolute silence. I redialed. This number is not in service. A sense of panic washed over me. I looked at the secure phone. A message from Jack sent minutes earlier, Claudia is gone. Left the hospital and never came back. Not answering. Something is very wrong. The cold seized me. Eva suddenly disconnected. Claudia missing. The pieces of my alliance were crumbling. Was it a coincidence? Or had Mark gotten to them first? Jack called on the secure channel, his voice a harsh whisper. Leah, listen. This smells like a betrayal from the inside. Someone sold us out. Only us, you, Claudia, Eva, and me knew the details. And now Claudia and Eva are off the board. You need to run. Now. No, I said. And the word came out firm, clinging to the only certainty I had left. Running is what he expects. If everything is falling apart, it's because we're close. I have to go through with the plan. Alone. Without us. It's suicide. It's the only play we have left. Get me away into that gala, Jack. Just that. I'll do the rest. There was a long silence. All right. I'll get you a fake invite, a good one. But after that, you're on your own. I have to disappear too. If there's a mole, I'm next on the list. So he hung up. I stood in the darkness of the safe house completely alone. My alliance had evaporated. All I had left was rage, the audio file with Rojas's voice, and a desperate plan. The next day, an anonymous courier left an envelope in a mailbox. Inside was a flawless invitation to the annual Hispano Capital Foundation Gala, in the name of Laura Saez, with my photo and a small audio device with one button. Press this near the sound equipment, a note said. It will transmit for 30 seconds. Good luck. It was my weapon, my one-way ticket into the heart of hell. Looking at the invitation, I knew with absolute certainty that Jack hadn't betrayed me. He had given me a choice. But Mark wanted me there to trap me, to silence me once and for all. I would go anyway. For Claudia, for Eva, for my mother, for every minute I had lived under his lie. But I wouldn't play by his rules. I would change the game. The charity gala at the Met was in full swing. I, under the fake name Laura Saez, moved through the crowd with a glass of champagne I didn't touch. I had located him the moment I walked in. There was Mark in his perfect tuxedo, and his marble smile shaking hands next to the mayor of Miami. Hypocrisy personified. Jack's device burned in my pocket. I had checked it. It was a USB drive with a single audio file. Jack's final play had been the right one. Give me the weapon, but force me to use it directly, no safety nets, all or nothing. I made my way to the back of the stage near the sound control table. A technician was distracted on his phone. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was now or never. "Excuse me," I said, my voice as steady as I could make it. "Mr. Sterling needs you to turn up the main microphone for his speech. There's a feedback issue." The technician looked at me confused, then nodded annoyed, and bent down to check a cable. It was the second I needed. With a swift movement, I plugged Jack's device into a free port on the mixer and pressed the button. At first, just a slight crackle from the speakers. Then the voice, not mine, his, Mark's, clear and cold, but now poisoned by its own content, amplified to full volume in the marble hall. "Rojas, that Miami file is a problem. It needs to be buried. And the federal judge is already convinced. A donation to his foundation. Business as usual. You just make sure the physical file disappears from the precinct. Consider it done. But my nephew at your bank, his contract renewal is guaranteed, as long as the silence is, too." A stone-cold silence fell over the gala, then a murmur that grew into a roar. TV cameras swung sharply toward the stage where Mark stood livid, his mouth half open, looking around like a cornered animal. The mayor of Miami took a step back, as if he'd been electrocuted. Then I saw the men, not in tuxedos. 3 figures in discreet suits were making their way with determination through the crowd. One of them flashed a badge at a security guard. FBI. They weren't Mark's men. They were the real ones. I walked up onto the stage. I didn't care about the stares, the flashes. I stood in front of Mark. He looked at me, and in his eyes there was not just rage but disbelief, as if a piece of furniture from his perfect home had come to life to stab him. "You," he spat, forgetting the microphones, forgetting everything. "All this. For revenge. For a divorce." I smiled. A smile that didn't reach my eyes, made of the same ice as his voice on those recordings. "No, Mark. For justice. Though you would never understand the difference." I paused, letting the stunned silence of the room fill the space between us. "And yes, all because of a divorce. Because of that 'never again' you ordered me to follow. Because of the 'okay' I replied with." He frowned, not understanding. He didn't remember. For him, it had just been the liquidation of an asset. "Okay. What does that have to do with anything?" "Everything," I interrupted as the FBI agents reached our side and one took his arm firmly. "Because it wasn't a 'yes, sir.' It was a promise. I told you clearly." "Okay. I agree. I accept." I moved a little closer and whispered just for him, as Commissioner Rojas was also being arrested a few feet away, to general astonishment. "Okay. I agree. I will destroy you." His eyes widened. It was our last exchange. The agents took him away. The flashes erupted like fireworks. Journalists shouted my real name questions that were lost in the chaos. I didn't answer. I walked off the stage and through the stunned crowd toward the exit. Outside, the New York night was cold. The secure phone buzzed. A message from Jack. "Eva and her son are safe. Claudia has been found. She was detained, but is okay. You did it. I didn't reply. I got into a taxi. Where to? The driver asked. I looked out the window at the museum, which would now be the site of Mark's infamy, not his glory. To the station, I said. To Boston. The taxi pulled away. I didn't look back, not at him, not at his world in ruins. I looked forward toward a silence that for the first time in a long time would not be filled with lies. Okay had been my first word of war, and my last.